The transport ship shuddered as it left hyperspace. Nari Kim pressed her face against the small window and watched the massive space station grow larger. Stellaris Military Academy floated like a metal city around the orange gas giant Narration. Prime, the academy was huge. Bigger than any building she had ever seen on Earth. Nari felt her stomach turn. Not from the ship movement, but from fear. She was the first human to ever study at this place. The first of her kind to walk these halls with aliens from across the galaxy. "Attention passengers," the ship's computer said in a cold voice. "We are now docking at Stellaris Military Academy. All cadets report to the main airlock." Nari picked up her small bag. Everything she owned from Earth fit inside. She had packed light, her grandmother's old martial arts uniform. A few books, some pictures of home. The mountains of Korea felt very far away now. The airlock opened with a loud hiss. Other students pushed past her. They were all different shapes and sizes. Some had blue skin and 4 arms. Others looked like giant insects with wings. A few had tentacles instead of legs. They all talked in languages she did not know. Nari stepped onto the station. The gravity felt strange. Lighter than Earth but heavier than the transport ship. She looked around the huge entrance hall. Everything was made of silver metal that reflected the lights. Hundreds of alien students moved through the space like colorful fish in a tank. "New meat," someone shouted in perfect English. Nari turned to see a tall creature with purple skin walking toward her. It had long arms and legs, and its eyes were completely black. "Look at this tiny thing. Is this really one of those humans we heard about?" Other students stopped to stare. Nari felt her cheeks turn red. She looked down at her feet and said nothing. "I am Cadet Zixtar," the purple alien said. He was much taller than Nari. "I am the apex fighter at this academy. That means I am the best warrior here. I have never lost a fight." Zixtar walked in a circle around Nari. She could smell something like metal and electricity coming from his skin. "Humans are supposed to be warriors? You look like you would break if I had breathed on you too hard." Some of the other students laughed. Nari kept looking at her feet. She wanted to disappear. "Leave her alone, Zixtar." A new voice spoke up. This time it was human. Nari looked up to see a young man with kind eyes walking toward them. He had dark hair and wore the same gray uniform as everyone else. "She just got here." Another human," Zixtar said. "Are you going to protect your little friend?" The human boy smiled, but Nari could see he was nervous. "I am Junho Park, and yes, I will protect my friend if I need to," Zixtar laughed. It sounded like breaking glass. How interesting. The prey wants to protect the smaller prey. He looked at both humans. "I look forward to our combat classes." Together, Zixtar walked away. The crowd of students followed him like he was some kind of king. Nari let out a long breath. "Do not worry about him," Junho said. "He talks big, but he is not as scary as he thinks." "I am Junho. I have been here for 6 months." "Nari," she said in a quiet voice. "Nari Kim. Nice to meet you, Nari Kim. Come on. I will show you to your room." They walked through long hallways, filled with students. Nari noticed how everyone looked at her. Some stared with open curiosity. Others whispered to their friends when she passed. A few made faces like they smelled something bad. "Why do they all hate us?" Nari asked. Jun-Ho sighed. "They do not hate us exactly, they just think we are weak. Humans are new to the galaxy. Most aliens think we are still primitive. Like we just learned to use fire yesterday." They stopped. At a door marked with strange symbols, Junho pressed his hand against a scanner and the door opened. "This is your room." "Mine is right across the hall." The room was small but clean. It had a bed, a desk, and a small window that looked out at the gas giant. Nari put her bag on the bed and sat down. "The first few weeks are hard," Junho said, "but it gets easier. The teachers are fair, even if they do not expect much from us. And some of the students are actually nice once you get to know them." "What about combat class?" Nari asked. "I heard this is a military academy." Junho nodded. 3 times a week. hand-to-hand combat, weapons training, and tactical exercises. Commander Velther teaches most of it. He is Altarian. They are fast and strong. He thinks humans move like we are underwater. Nari looked out the window. She could see other transport ships arriving and leaving. Students from dozens of different worlds coming to learn how to fight wars in space. Junho, she said, can I ask you something? Of course. Have you ever won a fight here? Junho was quiet for a long moment. No, he said finally. I have never even come close. The other species are just ... than us. Stronger, faster, smarter. They have advantages we do not have. What kind of advantages? The Vorthak like Zixtar are incredibly strong. They can lift 3 times what a human can. The Altarians move so fast you can barely see them. The Centaurans can read minds. The Nexians have armor-like skin that is almost impossible to cut. Nari nodded. What do humans have? Junho laughed, but it was not a happy sound. We have stubborn attitudes. And the ability to eat almost anything. Not very useful in a fight. After Junho left, Nari unpacked her bag. She hung her grandmother's martial arts uniform in the small closet. Her grandmother had taught her to fight when she was very young. Ancient Korean martial arts that focused on using an opponent's strength against them. Size does not matter. Her grandmother always said, speed does not matter. What matters is understanding. Watch your opponent, learn how they move, find their weakness. Then use it. Nari had spent years learning to watch and wait, to study her opponents before making a move. But her grandmother had only taught her to fight other humans. These aliens were completely different. She sat at her desk and pulled out a notebook. On the first page she wrote, combat observations in careful letters. If she was going to survive this place, she needed to learn everything she could about how these aliens fought. The next morning, Nari went to her first combat class. The training room was enormous. The ceiling was so high she could not see it. Clearly, students practiced in groups across the floor. Some used weapons she had never seen before. Others fought with their bare hands, claws, or tentacles. Commander Velther stood in the center of the room. He was tall and thin with blue-gray skin. When he moved, he seemed to blur around the edges. Today we will practice basic hand-to-hand combat, he announced. His voice carried easily across the huge room. Pair up with someone of similar skill level, Nari looked around. Everyone else was already finding partners. She stood alone until Junho walked over. Want to practice together? He asked Dot before. Nari could answer. Commander Velther appeared next to them. She had not seen him move. You must be our new human student, he said. He looked Nari up and down like she was an interesting bug. I am Commander Velther. I have heard much about your species. Yes, sir, Nari said quietly. Well, I suppose we will see what humans are capable of. For today, just observe. Watch how the other students fight. Try to learn something. Nari felt relief wash over her. Yes, sir. She spent the entire class watching. She sat against the wall with her notebook and studied every fight. The way the Vorthak used their strength. How the Altarians moved like liquid lightning, the patterns in their attacks. The mistakes they made when they got angry or tired. She wrote everything down. Every detail mattered. Every weakness could be important later. When class ended, Zixtar walked past her. Still just watching, little human? He said, when will you actually try to fight? Nari looked up at him but said nothing. She just smiled and closed her notebook. Zixtar frowned and walked away. Jun-Ho sat down next to her. What are you writing? In that book. Just notes, Nari said. My grandmother always told me to watch and learn before acting. Smart grandmother, Junho said, but eventually you will have to fight. Everyone has to take the combat tests. Nari nodded and put her notebook away. I know, but not today. As they walked back to their rooms, Nari thought about what she had seen. These aliens were strong and fast and dangerous, but they all had patterns. They all made mistakes. Her grandmother had been right. Size did not matter. Speed did not matter. Understanding Matter. And Nari was very good at understanding. Nari woke up to the sound of alarms. The academy day started early. She got dressed in her gray uniform and walked to the dining hall with Junho. The dining hall was like everything else at the academy. Huge and full of aliens, different species. Sat at different tables. Nari noticed they did not mix much. The blue-skinned Altarians sat together. The insect-like Stellans had their own section. The tentacled Nexians stayed near the walls. "Where do we sit?" Nari asked. Jun-Ho pointed to a small table in the corner. 3 other humans sat there looking uncomfortable. "That is our table, the human table." Nari followed him over. The other humans looked up when they approached. "This is Nare," Junho said. "She arrived yesterday." A girl with short black hair smiled at her. "I am Hyojin Choi. I have been here for 2 months." She looked tired and had a small cut on her cheek. "Combat practice?" Junho asked, pointing at the cut. Hyojin nodded. "I paired with a Vorthic yesterday. It did not go well." The other 2 humans introduced themselves. Timon Lee was a senior student who had been at the academy for a full year. He was the oldest human there. Dongwook Lim had arrived 3 weeks ago and already had bruises on both arms. "So how does this place work exactly?" Nari asked as she picked at her breakfast. The food was strange but edible. Temin looked around to make sure no one was listening. "Everything here is about rank. Combat rank. It decides where you sit, what classes you take, even what food you get." He pointed across the hall to a raised platform where a few students sat at golden tables. "Those are the top 10 fighters. They get the best of everything. Private rooms, advanced training, respect from the teachers." Nari saw Zixtar sitting at the center table. Other students brought him food and cleaned up after him like he was royalty. "Zixtar has been number 1 for 2 years, Taemin continued. "No one has even come close to beating him. He has won 847 fights in a row." 847? Nari repeated. "That seems like a lot." Dongwook laughed bitterly. "He fights almost every day. Challenges, training matches, exhibition fights. The academy loves to show him off to visitors." "What about us?" Nari asked. "Where do humans rank?" The table went quiet. Hyojin stared at her food. Junho shifted in his seat. "We are at the bottom," Taemin said finally. "All of us. The ranking system goes from 1 to 500. The highest any human has ever reached is 412. "That was me," Taemin added. "Last semester. Then I lost 5 fights in a row and dropped back down." Nari looked around the dining hall again. She saw the way other students looked at their table, some with pity, others with disgust. A few with amusement, like the humans were there for. Entertainment. "Why do they hate us so much?" she asked. Tae-Min sighed. "They do not hate us. They just think we are a waste of space. Humans only joined the Galactic Council 5 years ago. Before that, no one had ever heard of Earth. Most species think we are still learning to use basic technology." "The Vorthic have been in space for 10,000 years, Hyojin said. "The Altarians for 15,000. They have been fighting wars since before humans invented writing. And now, suddenly we show up wanting to join their military academy?" Junho added. "They think it is like a child wanting to play with grown-up toys?" After breakfast, Nari had her first full day of classes. Mathematics was taught by a floating robot. Galactic history was taught by a Centauran who could project images directly into students' minds. Tactical strategy was taught by an old Nexian general who had fought in 12 different wars, but the class everyone talked about was advanced combat theory. It was taught by Admiral Kethmos, the academy commandant himself. The admiral was a Centauran, which meant he looked almost human, except for his silver skin and completely white eyes. Centaurans were telepaths. They could read minds and speak directly into people's thoughts. "Combat is not about strength," Admiral Kethmos said as he walked between the desks. "It is not about speed or weapons or technology. Combat is about understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves." Nari wrote this down in her notebook. It sounded like something her grandmother would say. Each species in this galaxy has natural advantages, the Admiral continued. Vorthek. Strength, Altarian speed. Stellan flight, Nexian armor. Centauran telepathy. He paused and looked directly at Nari. What advantages do humans have? The classroom was silent. Nari felt every eye turn toward her. Her face grew hot. I asked you a question, Cadet Kim, the Admiral said. His voice was gentle but firm. I stood up slowly. I do not know, sir. Sit down. The Admiral walked to the front of the room. This is why the Galactic Council's diversity program is questionable. How can you fight if you do not know your own strengths? Nari felt like she wanted to disappear into the floor. Other students whispered and pointed at her. After class, she walked quickly toward the door. But the Admiral's voice stopped her. Cadet Kim, a moment. Nari turned around. The classroom was empty except for her and Admiral Kethmos. I did not mean to embarrass you, he said. But this is an important lesson. Every species that survives long enough to reach space has advantages. Humans would not be here if you had none. What advantages do we have? Nari asked quietly. The Admiral smiled. That is for you to discover, but I will give you a hint. Sometimes the greatest strength is not obvious until you need it most. That afternoon was combat practice again. This time, Commander Velther announced they would learn about the Academy's ranking system. Combat rank determines everything here, he said. Your rank decides your privileges, your training level, and your future assignments after graduation. He pointed to a huge display screen on the wall. It showed names and numbers in glowing letters. At the top, we have our Apex fighters. These are the 10 best warriors in the Academy. Zixtar's name glowed in gold at the very top. Below them are the advanced fighters, ranks 11 through 50. Then intermediate fighters, ranks 51 through 200. Finally, basic fighters, ranks 201 through 500. Nari found the human names on the list. They were all clustered near the bottom. Taemin was ranked 403. Junho was 447. Hyojin was 462. Dongwook was 491. Her own name was not on the list yet. New students start unranked, Commander. Velther explained. You must win your first fight to earn a place on the ranking board. He looked directly at Nari. Some students prefer to wait and watch, but eventually everyone must fight. The Academy requires all students to participate in combat evaluations. After class, Nari sat in her room and opened her notebook. She had filled 20 pages with observations about how different species fought. The Vorthak used overwhelming force in direct attacks. The Altarians were fast but got tired quickly. The Stellans could fly but were vulnerable on the ground. The Nexians were defensive fighters who waited for openings, but what about humans? What were their strengths? Nari thought about her grandmother's teachings. Her grandmother was small and old, but she could defeat young, strong men easily. How did she do it? Watch and learn, Nari whispered to herself. Find the weakness. Use it? There was a knock at her door. Nari opened it to find Hyojin standing. In the hallway, the other girl looked nervous. Can I talk to you? Hyojin asked as Nari let her in. Hyojin sat on the bed and was quiet for a long moment. I am thinking about quitting, she said finally. Quitting? Going back to Earth? This place is too hard? I lose every fight. The other students laugh at me. The teachers think I am hopeless. Nari sat down next to her. How many fights have you had? 15. I lost all of them. The last one sent me to the medical bay for 3 days. What did you learn from those fights? Hyojin looked confused. Learn? I learned that I am weak and stupid and should not be here. No, Nari said firmly. What did you learn about your opponents? How they move? What mistakes they make? I was too busy getting beaten up to notice anything like that. Nari opened her notebook and showed Hyojin her pages of observations. I have been watching every fight I can, taking notes. Looking for patterns, Hyojin read through some of the notes. Her eyes widened. You wrote all this just from watching? My grandmother taught me that understanding is more important than strength. But understanding does not help when a Vorthok is throwing you across the room. Nari smiled. Maybe it does. Maybe we just have not figured out how yet. That night, Nari lay in bed looking out at the gas giant through her window. Somewhere on this station, Zixstar was probably training, getting stronger and faster, preparing for his next victory, but Nari was learning too. Every day she watched and took notes and understood more about how these aliens fought. Her grandmother had taught her patience. The river does not fight the mountain, she used to say. It flows around it. Over time, the river wins. Nari was like that river, quiet and patient and always moving forward. Soon it would be time to show everyone what a human could really do, but not yet. She still had more to learn. 3 weeks passed at the academy. Nari fell into a routine. She woke early, ate breakfast with the other humans, attended classes, and spent hours watching combat practice. Her notebook grew thicker with observations about different fighting styles and weaknesses, but the pressure was building. All students must complete mandatory combat evaluations by the end of the month, Commander Velther announced during practice. No exceptions. Students who refuse to fight will be removed from the academy. Nari felt her stomach drop. Around her, other students nodded and began pairing up for practice matches. She looked at Jun-Ho, who gave her a worried smile. After class, the humans gathered at their usual table in the dining hall. Everyone looked stressed. We all have to fight, Taemin said quietly. All of us, even you, Nari. I know, she said. I heard the announcement. Dong-wook slammed his hand on the table. This is impossible. We are going to embarrass our entire species. Earth sent us here to prove humans belong in the galaxy, and we are just going to get destroyed. Speak for yourself, Hyojin said. I have been practicing with Nari. She has been helping me understand how my opponents move. Understanding will not help when you are flat on your back, Dong-wook replied. Maybe it will, Nari said softly. Everyone turned to look at her. She rarely spoke up during these conversations. What do you mean? Taemin asked. Nari opened her notebook and showed them pages of detailed observations. Look at this. Every species here has patterns. The Vorthok always lead with their right hand. The Altarians get tired after 30 seconds of full speed. The Stellans cannot change direction quickly when they dive. Jun-Ho leaned over to read her notes. You noticed all this just from watching? My grandmother taught me to watch before acting. She said every fighter has weaknesses, even the strongest ones. Your grandmother sounds wise, said a new voice. They all turned to see a woman in a medical uniform approaching their table. She had kind eyes and graying hair. I am Dr. Sujin Yang, she said in Korean accented English. I am the Academy's xenobiologist. I study how different species bodies work. You are human, Hyojin said with surprise. Dr. Yang smiled. I have been working here for 3 years. I came to study alien biology, but I ended up learning a lot about human biology too. She sat down at their table. I heard the announcement about combat evaluations. I want to talk to you about something important. Dr. Yang pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Privacy shield, she explained. Now we can talk freely. The other species here do not understand humans very well, she continued. They see our size and think we are weak. They see our speed and think we are slow, but they are missing something important. What? Nari asked. Human bodies are different. We are not as strong as Vorthok or as fast as Altarians. But we have something they do not. What is that? Taemin leaned forward. Endurance, flexibility, and most importantly, adaptation? Dr. Yang activated her device again. A hologram appeared showing different alien anatomies. Look at these bodies. Vorthok are incredibly strong, but their joints are rigid. They cannot bend or twist like humans can. Altarians are fast, but their muscles burn energy quickly. They cannot maintain their speed for long periods. She changed the hologram to show a human body. Humans evolved as persistence hunters. We could not catch prey with speed or strength, so we chased it until it collapsed from exhaustion. We can adapt our movements, our strategies, our entire approach based on what we face. Nari stared at the hologram. So we are built to outlast our opponents? Among other things, Dr. Yang said. Your notebook there shows you already understand the most important human advantage, which is pattern recognition. Humans are better at spotting patterns and adapting to them than any other species I have studied. You watch, you learn, you adjust your approach. Most aliens rely on their natural advantages and never change their tactics. The next day, Nari, Sut in tactical strategy class taking notes as usual. Professor Kentheler was discussing ancient battle formations when Admiral Kethmos entered the room. Continue your lesson, the Admiral told the professor. Then he walked over and sat in the empty seat next to Nari. She tried not to look nervous. Having the Academy Commandant sit next to her made every other student in the room stare. I have been reading reports about you, Cadet Kim, the Admiral said quietly. His telepathic voice spoke directly into her mind so others could not hear. Your instructors say you are an excellent student in theory, but you have never participated in practical combat. Yes, sir, Nari whispered. Your evaluation is scheduled for next week. Are you prepared? Nari hesitated. I am still learning, sir, the Admiral smiled. Learning is good. But there comes a time when learning must become action. Tell me what. Have you learned about combat in your weeks here? Nari thought carefully before answering. I learned that every fighter has patterns. I learned that strength and speed are not everything. I learned that patience can be more powerful than aggression. Interesting. And where did you learn these lessons? From my grandmother, sir. She taught me martial arts when I was young. Your grandmother was a warrior? She was a farmer, sir. But she learned to fight during hard times. She was very small, but she could defeat much larger opponents. The Admiral nodded. I would like to hear more about your grandmother's teachings. Come to my office after classes today. That afternoon, Nari sat in Admiral Kethmos' office drinking tea. The room was filled with artifacts from different worlds. Weapons, armor, and battle standards from dozens of species. Tell me about your grandmother, the Admiral said. Nari closed her eyes and remembered. Her name was Kim Ea. She lived through the war and the hard years after. When I was 7, older boys in our village started picking on me because I was small and quiet. What did she do? She taught me to fight, but not the way most people think of fighting. She said fighting was like farming. You prepare the ground, plant the seeds, and wait for the right time to harvest. The Admiral leaned forward. Explain. She taught me to watch my opponents. Learn how they moved, what made them angry, what scared them. Then I would use that knowledge against them. Nari opened her eyes and looked at the Admiral. One time? A boy much bigger than me kept pushing me around. My grandmother watched him for days. Then she told me his weakness. Which was? He was left-handed but tried to fight right-handed because he thought it looked stronger. His balance was always wrong. When he threw a punch, I just stepped to his weak side and pushed. He fell down every time. Admiral Kethmos smiled. Your grandmother understood something that many warriors never learn. The mind is more powerful than the body. Yes, sir. Show me your notebook. Nari handed over her combat observations. The Admiral read through pages of detailed notes about fighting, styles, weaknesses, and patterns. This is excellent work, he said finally. You have identified weaknesses that some of our instructors have not noticed. Thank you, sir. There is something I want to show you. The Admiral activated a holographic display. It showed combat. Footage from the Academy's history. This is Zixtar's first fight at the Academy 2 years ago, he said. Watch carefully. Nari watched as a younger Zixtar fought against a Stellan opponent. Even then he was strong and fast. But she noticed something. He gets frustrated when his first attack does not work, she said. Exactly. His fighting style has not changed in 2 years. He relies on overwhelming force and intimidation. It works. Because he is incredibly strong and most opponents panic. The Admiral changed the display to show Zixtar's most recent fight. But see here, he uses the exact same combination of moves. The same patterns. Nari studied the footage carefully. He has gotten stronger, but his tactics are identical, which means it can be predicted. Very good. The Admiral turned off the display. Your combat evaluation is in 5 days. I suggest you think carefully about what you have learned. As Nari walked back to her room, she felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. For weeks, she had been watching and learning. Now it was almost time to act. She found Junho waiting in the hallway outside her room. How did it go with the Admiral? He asked. He showed me something interesting about Zixtar, Nari said. Want to see my notes? They went into her room and spread her notebook on the desk. Nari showed Junho all her observations about the Apex fighter. Look at this pattern, she said, pointing to her sketches. Every fight starts the same way. Zixtar tries to intimidate his opponent with loud roars and aggressive posturing. Then he charges forward with a straight punch aimed at the head. And, that works? It works because his opponents are already scared. They freeze up or try to block the punch instead of moving out of the way. Junho studied the notes. So what would happen if someone was not scared? If they moved instead of blocking? Nari smiled. That is what I am going to find out. That night, Nari could not sleep. She kept thinking about her grandmother's lessons, about patience and observation and finding the right moment to act. Tomorrow she would ask for her combat evaluation. After weeks of watching, it was finally time to fight, but first she needed to choose her opponent carefully. Her grandmother had taught her that the first battle was the most important. It set the tone for everything that came after. Nari looked out her window at the gas giant spinning slow. The next morning, Nari woke up with a clear plan. She had spent half the night thinking about her first fight. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. Choose your battles wisely. The first victory teaches you about yourself. The first defeat can destroy your confidence forever. At breakfast, she sat with the other humans as usual. But today felt different. Today she would finally step into the combat arena. You look different, Hyojin said. More ... Darkest. I am going to request my combat evaluation today, Nari announced. The table went quiet. Junho put down his spoon and stared at her. Are you sure? Taemin asked. You can wait until the last day if you want. Waiting will not help me. I have learned everything I can from watching. Now I need to learn from doing. Dongwook leaned forward. Who are you going to fight? Nari had thought about this carefully. Someone ranked around 400. Strong enough to be a real test, but not so strong that I have no chance. The challenge system lets you pick anyone within 3 ranks of your level, Taemin explained. Since you are unranked, you can challenge anyone from rank 400 to 500. I know who you should fight, Hyojin said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. Cadet Mordak. He is a Nexian ranked at 423. Why him? Nari asked. I fought him 2 weeks ago. He is strong but predictable. Always uses the same defensive strategy. He waits for his opponent to attack, then counters with his armored fists. Nari opened her notebook and found her notes on Nexian fighting styles. Nexians have thick skin like armor. They are slow but very hard to hurt. They prefer to let opponents tire themselves out, then finish them with heavy blows. Exactly. Hyojin said, but I noticed something when I fought him. After he blocks 3 attacks in a row, he always counters with a right hook. Every single time. Nari made a note of this. That is useful information. After breakfast, Nari walked to the combat training center. Her stomach felt like it was full of butterflies, but her mind was calm. She had prepared for this moment. Commander Velther was supervising morning practice when she approached him. Commander, she said, I would like to request my combat evaluation. He stopped what he was doing and looked at her with surprise. Today? Yes. Sir, have you chosen an opponent? Cadet Mordak, Nexian, rank 423. Commander Velther raised an eyebrow. Mordak is experienced. He has been at the academy for 8 months. Are you certain about this choice? Yes, sir. Very well. He activated his communication device. This is Commander Velther. I need to schedule a combat evaluation. Cadet Nari Kim versus Cadet Morduk, Arena 3, 1400 hours. Nari felt her heart skip a beat. It was really happening. Word spread quickly through the academy. By lunchtime, everyone knew that the quiet human girl was finally going to fight. Students gathered in small groups, talking and making bets. Nari sat at the human table, but she could barely eat. The other humans were trying to give her advice, but their voices seemed to come from far away. "Remember to keep moving," Junho said. "Nexians are slow. Use your speed." "Do not let him grab you," Taemin added. "His grip strength is incredible." "Watch his feet," Hyojin said. "When he is about to counter, he shifts his weight to his right foot first." Nari nodded at all the advice, but her mind was elsewhere. She was visualizing the fight, going through different scenarios in her head. Her grandmother had taught her this technique. Fight the battle in your mind first. See every possibility. Plan for every outcome. Across the dining hall, she saw Morduk sitting with other Nexians. He was huge, even by Nexian standards. His skin looked like gray stone, and his hands were the size of dinner plates. When he saw her looking, he smiled and cracked his knuckles. Other students were not being subtle about their opinions. "The human girl is finally going to fight," she heard someone say. "This should be entertaining." "How long do you think she will last?" another voice asked. 30 seconds, maybe less. "I heard Morduk has never lost to a first-time fighter." Nari tried to ignore the comments, but they made her more nervous. She excused herself from lunch and went to her room to prepare. She changed into her combat uniform and sat quietly on her bed. This was what her grandmother called centering. Finding inner calm before the storm. She thought about all the fights she had watched, all the notes she had taken, all the patterns she had identified. Morduk was strong and tough, but he was predictable. That was his weakness. There was a knock at her door. Nari opened it to find Dr. Yang standing in the hallway. "I heard about your fight," the doctor said. "May I come in?" Nari let her in. Dr. Yang sat down and looked at her with kind eyes. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "Nervous," Nari admitted. "But ready." "Good. Nerves can help if you use them correctly. They sharpen your focus and speed up your reactions." Dr. Yang pulled out a small medical scanner. "I want to check your vital signs before the fight. Standard procedure." As the scanner beeped and flashed, Dr. Yang talked quietly. "I have been studying the combat records here for 3 years. Do you know what I have learned?" "What?" "The fighters who win the most are not always the strongest or fastest. They are the ones who adapt best during the fight. The ones who can change their strategy when their first plan does not work." The scanner finished. Dr. Yang looked at the results and smiled. "Your heart rate and stress levels are perfect. You are nervous but not panicked. That is exactly where you want to be." "Dr. Yang," Nari said. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think humans really belong here?" The doctor was quiet for a moment. "When I first came to this academy, I thought the same thing. I watched human students struggle and fail, and I wondered if we were just fooling ourselves." "What changed?" "Your mind? I realized that belonging is not about being the same as everyone else. It is about bringing something unique to the group. Humans bring things that other species do not have." "Like what?" "Curiosity, adaptability, the ability to find creative solutions to impossible problems." Dr. Yang stood up. "Today you have a chance to show everyone what those qualities can do." At 2 o'clock, Nari walked into Arena 3. The fighting space was circular, about 30 meters across, with a soft mat covering the floor. Raised seating surrounded the arena, and it was packed with students. Morduk was already there, warming up in the center of the arena. Up close, he looked even bigger than before. His gray skin had a metallic shine under the arena lights. Commander Velther stood at the edge of the fighting area with a control pad in his hands. "This is an official combat evaluation," he announced. "The fight continues until one fighter surrenders, is knocked unconscious, or is unable to continue." Nari walked to her side of the arena. The crowd was mostly quiet, but she could hear whispers and scattered laughter. She tried to block it out and focus on her opponent. Fighters. Take your positions, Commander Velther called. Nari walked to the center line. Morduk lumbered over from the other side. Standing next to him, she looked tiny. The top of her head barely reached his chest. I will try to make this quick, little human, Morduk said in a deep, rumbling voice. I do not enjoy hurting children. Nari looked up at him calmly. Thank you for your concern. This seemed to confuse him. He had probably expected her to be scared or angry. Fighters ready? Commander Velther asked. Nari nodded. Morduk cracked his knuckles again. Begin. Morduk immediately dropped into a defensive stance, just as Nari had expected. His feet spread wide, his armored fists raised to protect his head and chest. He was inviting her to attack so he could counter, but Nari did not attack. She circled slowly to her left, studying his movements. The crowd grew restless. Fight, someone shouted. Do something, Morduk looked confused. Are you going to attack, or shall we stand here all day? Nari continued circling. She was looking for the small details Hyojin had mentioned. The way he shifted his weight. The timing of his movements. After a full minute of circling, Morduk got impatient. He lunged forward with a heavy right-handed punch aimed at Nari's head. Nari had been waiting for this. She ducked under the punch and stepped to her right, exactly as her grandmother had taught her. Morduk's fist whistled through empty air. The Nexian stumbled slightly, off balance from his missed attack. Nari could have struck him then, but she did not. Instead, she resumed circling. Hit him! Dongwook shouted from the crowd, but Nari had a plan. She needed to see Morduk's complete pattern before she acted. Her grandmother had taught her patience above all else. Morduk tried 2 more attacks, both heavy and predictable. Nari avoided them easily, staying just out of reach. She could see frustration building in his eyes. Stand still and fight like a warrior, he growled. Nari smiled. I am fighting like a human. The crowd was getting louder now. Some students were booing, others were laughing. But Nari noticed that some of the more experienced fighters were watching her with interest. They recognized what she was doing. She was learning. Every attack, every movement, every pattern. Soon she would have enough information to finish this fight. Morduk charged again, this time with both fists swinging. Nari ducked and weaved between his punches like water flowing around stones. That was when she saw it. The pattern Hyojin had described. After missing 3 attacks in a row, Morduk shifted his weight to his right foot and cocked his arm for a devastat. Nari saw Morduk shift his weight to his right foot. His left arm pulled back for the counterpunch that Hyojin had warned her about. Everything slowed down in Nari's mind, just like her grandmother had taught her. When the moment comes, you will know it, her grandmother used to say. Your body will move before your mind can think. As Morduk's massive fist came toward her head, Nari did something unexpected. Instead of backing away, she stepped forward and to the side. The punch missed her by inches, and suddenly she was inside Morduk's guard. The Nexian's eyes went wide with surprise. No opponent had ever moved closer to him during an attack. Nari placed both hands on Morduk's extended arm and used his own momentum against him. She guided his forward motion while sweeping her leg behind his right ankle. It was a technique her grandmother had shown her dozens of times. Morduk, weighing 3 times as much as Nari, crashed to the mat with a thunderous sound that echoed through the arena. The crowd fell completely silent. Morduk lay on his back, staring at the ceiling, in shock. He was not hurt, just confused about how he had ended up on the ground. Winner, Cadet Nari Kim, Commander Velther announced, his voice showing his own surprise. The silence broke into chaos. Students were shouting and pointing. Some were arguing about what they had just seen. Nari helped Morduk to his feet. The big Nexian looked at her with new respect. How did you do that? He asked. I used your strength against you, Nari said simply. My grandmother taught me that technique when I was 10 years old. Morduk shook his head in amazement. I have fought dozens of opponents. No one has ever defeated me so easily. You are very strong, Nari said. But strength without adaptability can become a weakness. As Nari left the arena, students stared at her with new eyes. The quiet human girl had just done something impossible. She had made defeating a seasoned fighter look effortless. At the human table that evening, the mood was completely different. "That was incredible," Junho said for the 10th time. "You made it look so easy." "It was not easy," Nari said. "I spent weeks studying Nexian fighting patterns. I knew exactly what Morduk would do." "But how did you know he would fall like that?" Hyojin asked. "Physics," Nari replied. "His center of gravity was too far forward when he missed the punch. I just helped him continue in that direction." Temin was looking at a tablet showing the updated rankings. "You are now ranked 423. You took Morduk's exact position. One fight and you are already higher than some students who have been here for months," Dongwook said. He sounded impressed but also jealous. The next morning, Nari noticed that other students were looking at her differently. Some nodded respectfully when she passed. Others whispered and pointed. A few seemed angry or confused. In advanced combat theory class, Admiral Kethmos called on her. "Cadet Kim, you had your first evaluation yesterday. What did you learn from the experience?" Nari stood up. "I learned that theory and practice are both important, sir. All my observations helped me understand my opponent, but I still had to execute the technique correctly." "And what surprised you most about actual combat?" Nari thought for a moment. "How quiet everything became in the crucial moments, sir. All the noise from the crowd disappeared. It was just me and my opponent and the knowledge I had gained from watching." The Admiral smiled. "An excellent observation. Combat often comes down to those single moments of clarity." After class, a Stellan student approached Nari in the hallway. She had 4 arms and large wings folded against her back. "I am Cadet Baoram," she said in heavily accented English. "I watched your fight yesterday." "Hello," Nari said politely. "I am ranked 315. I would like to train with you sometime." Nari was surprised. "Train with me? Your fighting style is different from anything I have seen. I think I could learn from you." This was the first time a non-human student had asked to train with Nari. "I would be happy to train with you." Bioram smiled, which looked strange on her insect-like face. "Good, I will show you Stellan aerial combat techniques. You can show me your grandmother's wisdom." Word of this training partnership spread quickly. Soon, other students were asking Nari questions about human fighting techniques. "How do you stay so calm during combat?" asked a young Altarian. "Why do you circle so much before attacking?" Wondered a Vorthek cadet. "What is this using strength against itself concept?" Inquired a Centauran student. Nari found herself becoming an unofficial teacher. She shared her grandmother's lessons about patience, observation, and adaptation. She showed students how to recognize patterns in their opponent's movements, but not everyone was pleased with Nari's sudden rise in attention. "This is ridiculous," she heard Zixtar say to his friends during combat practice. "One lucky victory against a mid-level fighter and suddenly everyone thinks this human is special." "She did make it look easy," one of his followers said. "Easy?" Zixtar laughed harshly. "Morduk is slow and predictable. I could have defeated him with my eyes closed. Let her try that technique against a real fighter." Nari pretended not to hear, but she made note of Zixtar's words. The apex fighter was feeling threatened. That was useful information. 2 weeks later, Nari received her second combat challenge. This time it came from Cadet Yexalon, a Altarian ranked 298. "I want to see if your first victory was luck," Yexalon told her before the fight. "Altarians are much faster than Nexians. Your grandmother's tricks will not work against speed." Nari nodded politely. "We will see." The fight took place in Arena 1, the largest combat space in the academy. Even more students came to watch this time. Word had spread that the human girl might be more than just lucky. Yexalon was everything Mordek was not. Thin, quick, and constantly moving. He bounced on his toes and shadow-boxed as he warmed up. His movements were so fast they blurred. "This human is in trouble," Nari heard someone say. No one can keep up with Yexalon's speed. When the fight began, Yexalon immediately went on the attack. He moved like lightning, throwing dozens of punches in seconds. But Nari was not where his punches were aimed. She had spent 2 weeks studying Altarian fighting footage. She knew that their incredible speed came with a cost. They had to follow predictable patterns to maintain their velocity. Nari moved like water, flowing around Yexalon's attacks without trying to match his speed. She stayed just out of reach, letting him exhaust himself with missed punches. "Stand still!" Yexalon shouted in frustration. "Fight like a warrior." "I am fighting." "Like a human," Nari replied calmly. After 90 seconds of constant movement, Yexalon began to slow down. His punches became less precise. His breathing grew heavy. This was exactly what Dr. Young had told her about Altarian physiology. Nari waited for the perfect moment. When Yexalon threw a wild haymaker with his right hand, she stepped inside his guard and gently pushed him off balance. The exhausted Altarian stumbled and fell. "Winner, Cadet Nari Kim," Commander Velther announced. The crowd erupted in surprised cheers. Nari had just defeated a fighter ranked over 100 positions above her, and she had done it without throwing a single punch. Yexalon sat on the mat, gasping for breath. "How?" he asked. "I am 10 times faster than you." "Speed without endurance is like a flash of lightning," Nari said, helping him up. "Bright and impressive, but it does not last." After this second victory, Nari's ranking jumped to 298. She was now in the intermediate fighter category. The human table in the dining hall had become a gathering place for students from different species. Boram sat with them regularly, along with several others who wanted to learn about human fighting philosophy. "You are changing things here," Taemin told Nari one evening. "Students are starting to question their assumptions about combat." "I am just sharing what my grandmother taught me," Nari said. "Your grandmother must have been an amazing teacher," Boram said. "Her lessons work against species she never met." Hyojin leaned forward. "Nari, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How high do you think you can climb in the rankings?" Nari looked around the table at all the faces watching her. Human and alien students alike were waiting for her answer. "I do not know," she said honestly, "but I am still learning. Every fight teaches me something new about combat and about myself." "What about Zixtar?" Dongwook asked quietly. "Do you think you could ever challenge him?" The table went silent. Everyone knew that Zixtar was in a completely different league. He had defeated apex fighters from every species. His strength and skill were legendary. Nari thought about all the footage she had watched of Zixtar's fights, all the notes she had taken about his patterns and habits. "My grandmother taught me never to look too far ahead," she said finally. "Each opponent teaches you something that prepares you for the next one. When the time comes to face Zixtar, I will either be ready or I will learn why I was not ready." Oram clicked her mandibles, and what Nari had learned was a Stellan expression of respect. "Your grandmother's wisdom grows deeper each time you share it." That night, Nari lay in bed looking out at the gas giant. 2 months ago, she had been the quiet exchange student that everyone ignored. Now, she was ranked in the top 300 fighters at the most prestigious military academy in the galaxy, but she knew this was just the beginning. Each victory brought new challenges. 3 months had passed since Nari's first fight. She now sat at rank 57 on the Academy's combat board. Her name glowed in blue letters among the advanced fighters, just below the golden names of the top 10 apex fighters. The dining hall had changed around her. The human table was no longer isolated in the corner. Students from many species joined them now, creating a mix of colors and voices that would have been impossible when Nari first arrived. 17 victories and 0 defeats, Boram said, reading from her tablet. "You have the best winning record of any student currently at the Academy." "Zixtar has never lost either," Taemin pointed out. "Zixtar has been here for 2 years, Hyojin replied. "Nari has done this in 3 months." Nari listened to her friends talk while she studied her notebook. She had filled 4 books now with observations about different fighting styles and techniques. Her latest entries were focused on the apex fighters, the 10 best warriors at the academy. Each apex fighter was a master of their species' natural advantages. Zixtar's overwhelming strength. Karish the Stellan's aerial superiority. Thekmar the Centaur's telepathic prediction abilities. They were not just strong or fast or tough. They were perfect examples of what their species could achieve. Nari, Junho said, there is something you should know. She looked up from her notebook. What? General Wexler is coming to the academy next week. He is bringing a delegation. From the Galactic Military Council, Nari knew this name. General Wexler was one of the most famous military leaders in the galaxy, a Vorthek warrior who had won 3 interstellar wars. Why are they coming? She asked. Official inspection, Taemin said. But everyone knows the real reason. They want to see the human who has been causing so much talk. Talk? Ba'oram clicked her mandibles. Nari, your victories are being discussed across the galaxy. Military academies on dozens of worlds are asking questions about human combat potential. The Galactic Council is reconsidering their opinions about Earth, Junho added. Your success here is changing how they see our entire species. Nari felt a weight settle on her shoulders. She had been focused on her own learning and growth. She had not realized that others were watching and judging all humans based on her performance. No pressure, Dongwook said with a weak smile. That afternoon, Nari was practicing forms in the gymnasium when Admiral Kethmos approached her. Cadet Kim, he said, walk with me. They left the gymnasium and walked through the academy's observation deck. Through the massive windows, they could see the orange glow of Narian Prime filling half the sky. General Wexler arrives in 4 days, the Admiral said. He will want to see a demonstration of what this academy produces. Yes, sir. Traditionally, such demonstrations feature our apex fighters. Zixtar will fight, of course. Probably against Kairesh or one of the other top contenders, Nari nodded. She had expected this. However, the Admiral continued, the General specifically requested to see you fight. Nari stopped walking. Me. Sir, your reputation has reached the highest levels of military command. They want to see if the reports about human adaptability are accurate. Who would I fight? Admiral Kethmos turned to look at her directly. That is your choice. You are ranked high enough now to challenge any fighter at this academy. Nari felt. Her heart skip. Any fighter, including Zixtar. The words hung in the air between them. Nari looked out at the gas giant, her mind racing. Sir, she said carefully, what happens if I lose? You learn from the experience and continue growing as a warrior. And if I win? The Admiral smiled. Then you change everything. That evening, Nari sat in her room staring at her notebooks. 4 books filled with observations, patterns, and weaknesses. Hundreds of fights analyzed. Thousands of small details recorded. She opened to her notes on Zixtar. She had watched every one of his fights at the academy, studied every victory, analyzed every technique. Zixtar was incredibly strong, even by Vorthak standards. His punches could dent metal, his grip could crush stone. But strength was not his only advantage. He was also intelligent, experienced, and utterly confident. Most importantly, he was predictable. In 2 years of fighting, Zixtar had never changed his basic approach. He relied on intimidation, overwhelming force, and the fear of his opponents. It worked perfectly because most fighters were beaten before the match even began, but Nari had watched him carefully. She had seen the tiny patterns that others missed. The way he always started fights with the same roar. How he favored his right hand for opening attacks. The exact sequence of moves he used when opponents tried to retreat, her grandmother's voice echoed. In her memory, the strongest tree in the forest is often the first to fall in a storm. It cannot bend, so it breaks. Nari made her decision. The next morning, she walked into Commander Velther's office. I want to issue a challenge, she said. The commander looked up from his paperwork. Against whom? Zixtar. Commander Velther's pen stopped moving. He stared at her for a long moment. Cadet Kim, he said slowly, are you certain about this? Zixtar has never been defeated. He has ended the academy careers of dozens of promising fighters. I am certain, sir. You understand that as an Apex challenge, this fight will be public? Students from across the galaxy will watch the broadcast. I understand. Commander Velther activated his communication system. This is Commander Velther. I need to register. An official Apex challenge. Cadet Nari Kim versus Apex fighter Zixtar. There was a long pause from the other end. Confirm that request, Commander. Confirmed. Schedule the fight for 3 days from now. Grand Arena, full ceremony. When the announcement was made official, the Academy exploded with excitement. Students gathered in groups, talking in dozens of languages. The news spread through the Galactic Communication Network within hours. Nari tried to maintain her normal routine, but everything felt different. Other students stared at her wherever she went. Some looked impressed, others looked worried. A few seemed to think she had lost her mind. Are you sure about this? Junho asked for the 100th time. I am sure, Nari replied. Zixtar is not. Mordek or Yexalon, Taiman warned. He is in a completely different category. I know. He has never lost a fight, Hyojin added. Never even been seriously challenged. I know that too. Bioram clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. What does your grandmother's wisdom tell you about this fight? Nari smiled. She would say that the mouse can defeat the cat if the mouse understands. The cat better than the cat understands the mouse. 2 days before the fight, Zixtar approached Nari in the corridor outside her dormitory. He was even more intimidating up close, towering over her like a purple mountain. Little human, he said in his deep voice. I want to give you a chance to withdraw your challenge. Thank you for the offer, Nari said politely, but I will fight. Zixtar studied her face. You are not afraid of me. Should I be? Everyone else is? Nari looked up at him calmly. Fear is a choice. I choose not to be afraid. This seemed to confuse Zixtar. He was used to opponents who trembled in his presence. I have fought the strongest warriors from every species in the galaxy, he said. What makes you think you can succeed where they have failed? I have watched all of your fights, Nari said. I have learned from them. Learned what? Nari smiled. That will be a surprise. The day before the fight, General Wexler arrived with his delegation. The general was massive even by Vorthix standards, with scars covering his arms and chest. He had fought in more battles than anyone alive. Nari was called to meet with the delegation in Admiral Kethmos' office. The room felt crowded with so many important officials. So you are the human everyone is talking about, General Wexler said. His voice was like grinding stone. You look very small. Yes, sir, Nari said. Do you really think you can defeat Zixtar? Nari thought carefully before answering. I think I can learn something important from trying. The general laughed, a sound like an avalanche. A diplomatic answer. But tomorrow there will be no diplomacy, only combat. I understand, sir. Tell me, young human. What do you hope to accomplish? With this fight? Nari looked around the room at all the powerful beings watching her. I want to show that humans belong in the galaxy, sir, that we have something valuable to contribute. And if you lose, then I will have learned why I lost. That knowledge will help the next human who tries. General Wexler nodded slowly, an honorable attitude. Win or lose, you have my respect. That night, Nari could not sleep. She sat by her window, looking out at the gas giant and thinking about everything that had led to this moment. Her grandmother's teachings, the months of watching and learning, the 17 victories that had brought her to the apex of the Academy's ranking system. Tomorrow, in front of students and officials from across the galaxy, she would face the greatest challenge of her life. Her grandmother had taught her that the most important battles were not fought with fists or weapons, but with understanding and wisdom. Nari opened her notebook one final time and read through her observations about Zixtar. Every pattern, every habit, every tiny weakness she had identified, she was as ready as she could be. Now it was time to find out if a human could really challenge the apex of alien combat superiority. The morning of the fight arrived with unusual quiet in the academy. Students whispered instead of talking. Even the usual sounds of training and movement seemed muted. Everyone knew that today would be different. Nari woke before her alarm and sat in meditation for 30 minutes, just as her grandmother had taught her. She cleared her mind of fear, doubt, and expectation. When she opened her eyes, she felt centered and calm. At breakfast, the human table was surrounded by friends from many species. Bioram sat next to Nari, her wings folded tight with nervousness. Junho could barely eat. Even Taemin, usually so confident, looked worried. "How do you feel?" Hyojin asked quietly. "Ready?" Nari said simply. Dr. Yang appeared at their table carrying a medical scanner. "Time for your pre-fight examination," she said. The scanner showed that Nari's heart rate was steady, her stress hormones normal. Dr. Yang looked surprised. "I have never seen readings this calm before a major fight," she said. "Are you sure you understand what you are about to face?" Nari smiled. "I understand perfectly. That is why I am calm." The Grand Arena was the largest space in the academy. It could hold 10,000 spectators, and today every seat was filled. Students, instructors, and visiting officials packed the stands. Large screens showed the arena to viewers across the galaxy. Nari walked through the fighter's entrance wearing simple, gray combat clothes. The noise from the crowd was overwhelming, but she focused on her breathing and let the sound wash over her without affecting her mind. Zixtar entered from the opposite side to thunderous cheers. He was magnificent in his purple skin and bulging muscles. He raised his arms to the crowd and roared, a sound that echoed through the arena like thunder. Admiral Kethmos stood at the center of the fighting area with a ceremonial staff in his hands. "Citizens of the galaxy," he announced, his voice projected to every corner of the arena. "Today we witness an Apex challenge. Cadet Nari Kim of Earth challenges Apex fighter Zixtar of Vorthek Prime." The crowd erupted in cheers and boos. Nari noticed that most of the cheering came from the human section and her alien friends. The rest of the audience seemed to view this as entertainment rather than a serious contest. This fight continues until surrender, unconsciousness, or inability. "To continue," Admiral Kethmos continued. "Fighters, approach the center." Nari walked to the center line. Each step felt deliberate and calm. Zixtar lumbered over from his side, his footsteps making the arena floor vibrate. Standing next to him, Nari looked impossibly small. The top of her head barely reached his chest. The size difference was so extreme that some people in the crowd laughed. "Last chance to surrender, little human," Zixtar said loud enough for the crowd to hear. "I do not want to hurt you." Nari looked up at him with clear eyes. "Thank you for your concern. I am ready to begin." Zixtar frowned. He had expected fear or anger, not polite calmness. "Fighters ready?" Admiral Kethmos asked. Both fighters nodded. "Begin?" The crowd roared as Zixtar immediately went into his intimidation routine. He beat his chest with both fists and let out a deafening roar that could be heard throughout the station. His purple skin seemed to glow with rage and power. Nari stood perfectly still, watching him with quiet attention. Zixtar charged forward with his signature opening move, a massive right-handed punch aimed directly at Nari's head. It was the same attack he had used to start every fight for 2 years. Nari had been waiting for this exact moment. She stepped to her left and slightly forward, moving just enough to let the punch miss her by inches. Zixtar's fist whistled through empty air where her head had been a moment before, but Nari did not counterattack. Instead, she stepped back and resumed her watching position. The crowd grew confused. Why had she not struck when she had the chance? Zixtar tried again, this time with a left hook followed by a right uppercut. Nari flowed around both punches like water, staying just out of reach. "Fight back!" someone shouted from the stands. "Hit him!" But Nari continued to watch and evade. She was not running or hiding, she was studying. Every attack told her something about Zixtar's patterns, timing, and habits. Zixtar grew frustrated. "Stand still and fight like a warrior." "I am fighting," Nari said calmly, "just not the way you expect." For 5 full minutes, Zixtar threw punch after punch while Nari danced around them. She never struck back, never showed aggression. She simply observed and learned. The crowd was getting restless. Some booed, others laughed. A few of the more experienced fighters in the audience began to understand what Nari was doing. "She's downloading him," Ram whispered to Junho. In the stands, learning every pattern. Zixtar was breathing harder now. His punches were becoming less precise as anger and exertion took their toll. This was exactly what Nari had been waiting for. "You cannot run forever, human," he roared. "You are right," Nari said. "I cannot." That was when everything changed. Zixtar threw his favorite combination, the one Nari had seen him use in dozens of fights. Right cross, left hook, right uppercut. It was powerful and devastating when it connected, but Nari knew it was coming. As the right cross came toward her, she stepped inside Zixtar's guard instead of away from it. She was suddenly so close that he could not use his reach advantage. Before Zixtar could adjust, Nari placed both hands on his extended right arm. She used his own forward momentum and turned slightly to her left, guiding his motion in a direction he had not intended. Thought it was the same technique she had used against Mordek, but refined through months of practice and study. Zixtar carried forward by his own power and rage, found himself thrown completely off balance. His feet left the ground as Nari redirected all his strength against him. The apex fighter crashed to the arena floor with a sound like a falling building. The arena went completely silent. Zixtar lay on his back, staring at the ceiling in complete shock. He was not hurt, but he could not understand what had just happened. Nari stood over him, calm and centered. "How?" Zixtar whispered. "You are very strong," Nari said gently. "But you use the same patterns in every fight?" "Once I learned those patterns, I could predict what you would do." She offered him her hand to help him up. "My grandmother taught me that the strongest river carves through rock not with force, but with persistence and patience." Zixtar stared at her outstretched hand for a long moment. Then he reached up and let her help him to his feet. The arena remained silent until Admiral Kethmos raised his staff. "Winner, Cadet Nari Kim!" The silence exploded into chaos. Students were on their feet cheering, arguing, and pointing. The humans in the stands were crying with joy. Even some of the alien spectators looked stunned with admiration. General Wexler stood up in his viewing box and began to clap slowly. The sound carried across the arena, and gradually other officials joined him. Nari walked to the center of the arena and bowed respectfully to all four sides of the crowd, just as her grandmother had taught her to show respect after any contest. As she left the arena, Zixtar caught up with her. "Wait," he said. Nari turned around. "That technique you used," he said. "Could you teach it to me?" Nari smiled. "Of course. My grandmother always said that knowledge grows when it is shared." Later that evening, the dining hall was packed with celebration. Students from dozens of species gathered around the human table, asking questions and offering congratulations. "You did it," Junho said, still looking amazed. "You actually beat Zixtar." "We did it," Nari corrected. "All of us. Every friend who supported me, every opponent who taught me something, every instructor who helped me learn." Admiral Kethmos appeared at their table. "Cadet Kim," he said, "General Wexler would like to speak with you." Nari followed the admiral to his office, where the general was waiting with his delegation. "Congratulations, young human," General Wexler said. "You have accomplished something remarkable today." "Thank you, sir. The Galactic Military Council has been discussing Earth's role in our alliance. Your performance today has answered many questions about human potential. I am honored, sir. We would like to offer you early graduation and a position as a combat instructor at this academy. You could teach your techniques to fighters from across the galaxy." Nari considered this carefully. "May I ask for some time to think about it?" "Sir, of course. But tell me, what did you learn from today's fight?" Nari thought about her grandmother's teachings, about the months of patient observation, about the moment when everything came together. "I learned that being different is not the same as being weak," she said. "Humans may not be the strongest or fastest, but we can adapt and learn and find new ways to solve old problems." General Wexler nodded approvingly. "And what will you?" do with this knowledge? I will share it, Nari said simply. My grandmother taught me that wisdom only matters if it helps others. That night, Nari sat by her window looking out at the gas giant one more time. In a few hours, news of her victory would reach Earth. Her quiet farming village would learn that one of their own had defeated the greatest fighter in the galaxy. But more importantly, humans everywhere would know that they belonged among the stars, that their differences were strengths, not weaknesses. Nari opened a new notebook and wrote on the first page, "Teaching notes, sharing grandmother's wisdom." She had learned everything her grandmother had to teach her about fighting. Now it was time to learn about teaching.